Hello everyone, today we're solving LeetCode 75 question challenge, and we're on problem 2. And problem 2 is 1071 GCD of strings. Cool. Now, let's first understand what the question is trying to ask us. So the question is basically saying given string 1 is some string like ABC and ABC, and given string 2 is another string like ABC, we want to find the GCD of string 1 and string 2. And the GCD is defined as the GCD string that we find, so our answer string, can divide both S2 and S1. So in this case, GCD would be ABC because ABC is in S2, and then ABC and ABC combined together makes up S1. So let's look over another test case that LeetCode gives us. So for example, string 1 is AB, 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 and string 2 is AB, AB. Okay. Then to solve this question, we first find the shorter string. So we see the S2 shorter, and then we look over, and then we could create a temp string, see if this is our GCD. So we could say call this temp GCD, and we could call the first temp GCD AB, AB, or the entire length of S2, and we see if this one divides S1. So AB, AB, and then AB, we're missing another AB right here. So this does not divide S1, so this cannot be our GCD. And then we look at ABA, but we see that ABA doesn't even divide S2, right? ABA, and then you have another B here, so it doesn't even divide S2, so this cannot be our GCD. So we will skip this one. So we skip this one, and then we simply go on to AB. And we check if AB divides S2. AB does divide S2. And does it divide S1? AB, AB, AB. AB does divide S1. And then we look at A. So we looked at this first, and then we look at this, and then we look at this, and then we look at this. So does A divide S2? A doesn't even divide S2, so we skip it. And then we look at the empty string. And the empty string will be our answer if none of these work. But we see here that AB is a solution, so we simply return that, and that will be our answer. The substring's length that we picked, so the length of like S2 divided by the length of the temp string that we created has to be equal to 0. Now let's code up the solution for 1071, greatest common divisor of strings. Let's first create a helper function called divides, and we see if our temp GCD string divides string 1, let's call this one S1, and string 2, let's call it S2 for short. And we first know that if the length of S1 mod the length of temp GCD is not equal to 0, then we return false right away, or the length of string 2 mod the length of temp GCD, or the string that we're checking to see if it's the answer, is not equal to 0. That means there is no way that this is our greatest common divisor, since it doesn't even fully divide out string 1, string 2, we return false right away. And we can get rid of these parentheses since we are in Python. Now, let's create a temp variable called shortest string, and let's create another one called the long, let's call this the shorter string, and let's call this one the longer string. And we want to figure out which string of string 1 or string 2 is shorter and which one is longer. So we could loop through and figure out temp GCD and see if temp GCD can equal the shorter string and equal the longer string as well. So if the length of S1 is less than the length of S2, we assign shorter string to be S1 and longer string to be S2. Else we flip it, shorter string is S2 and the longer string is S1. Right, great. Now, while the length of temp GCD is less than the length of our shorter string, we want to add temp GCD with itself. And after this condition is not satisfied right here, that means we have created a temp GCD that is as close to the shorter string as possible. So if temp GCD, the string, is not equal to shorter string, we return false right away because it's not a GCD, return false. Now, while the length of temp GCD is less than the length of our longer string, we want temp GCD to add itself. So add temp GCD. And again, same logic here. If temp GCD is not equal to the longer string, then we return false. Else, we return true, that temp GCD is a divisor of string 1 and string 2. Right, cool. Now we could do our algorithm. So for in range length of, I'm doing string 1. You could do string 2 as well, but you could pick any string 1 or string 2. It doesn't really matter. And if divides, we are passing in a substring of string 1 in this case. So string 1 from 0 to the length of string 1 minus I, comma, string 1, string 2 is true. We return string 1 from 0, the substring to the length of string 1 minus I. And the reason why we're not doing the minus 1 to the end of here is because the substring method returns a string like that. So it's not inclusive of the last element in the substring. That's why we don't minus 1 there. Else, we return an empty string. Now let's run this. Okay, here there's a slight mistake. We should create a temp variable and let temp add to temp GCD. Or else, because temp GCD is adding to itself, there is a complication that happens. So like if temp GCD is already AB, we are not adding a singular AB for the next one. We're not adding a singular AB. We're adding AB. So then it kind of messes things up. So we need to do a temp variable. Oh, modify this. There we go. Now let's run again. So we make all of these temps instead of temp GCD. So we just change everything to temp instead. And let's try to run this again. And we see it passes these test cases. And if we submit, the code should work. All right, there we go.